Have you all noticed the Buddhist prayer flags that are hanging in our family room? How many of you have noticed those Buddhist flags? Wonderful. Go back and take a look at them if you haven't. On each one is written a prayer which blesses the surrounding area and promotes peace and compassion and strength and wisdom. You probably saw these flags hanging all over town a few years ago when the Dalai Lama came to New Orleans. For those of you here for the first time today, how many of you are here for the first time today? Would you raise your hand? Welcome, welcome. Well, we've been studying some of the ancient teachings like Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, Confucianism this summer. They each have a lot to offer us in the modern world. And they're important to us at Unity because we accept all names and all paths for the divine. Now, these spiritual paths may conflict with some fundamental religions, but they parallel the Unity teachings in many, many ways. In fact, many of the Unity teachings came out of these. It's not surprising because Unity co-founders Charles and Myrtle Fillmore studied many, many religions from which they gleaned the truth that we all study now. That's why many people believe that, and many Unity teachers believe, that Unity is more Eastern than Western even, because like most Eastern spiritual paths, Unity does not believe in an anthropomorphic bearded God up there on a cloud somewhere who punishes and rewards us all the time, depending on our behavior. We may go to jail if we steal or if we kill, but that's our own doing, our own bad karma. So today, we'll be talking about Buddhism. Because of Buddhism's emphasis on compassion, Buddhism parallels really all Western paths, but Unity the most. It parallels certainly Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, the three Western paths. In fact, I practiced Zen Buddhism here for several years at Loyola University with a Buddhist Jesuit priest. His Zen masses, by the way, were just full of devout Catholics every week. Is that possible? Anybody wonder that in your mind? Is that possible? How is that possible? Yes, it's possible because Buddhism is not a religion. It's not a philosophy either. It's a path. It's a way of life. So you can practice the Buddhist path and practice your own religion at the same time. There isn't much about the Buddhist path that any religion could take issue with, really, unless a religion is opposed to psychotherapy, which some may be. So, what is Buddhism? Well, I was taught by my Tibetan Buddhist professors that Buddhism in the East is equivalent to psychology in the West. So when you think Buddhism, think psychology. Right off, that'll put you in a framework to understand it better. Now, why is that? Because Buddhism is about improving your life by changing your mind. Sounds kind of like Unity, right? Absolutely. Change your thinking and change your life, right? This is done by helping you develop the capacity to see clearly, to see through your programming, to see through your embedded beliefs, and thus see the reality of what is, because Buddhism believes, like Unity, that when you see the reality of what really is, you end your suffering. Buddhism, like Unity, is full of tools for doing this, the end result being the ability to live more peacefully, joyfully, compassionately, and abundantly. Buddhism, like Unity, says that we must change our thinking because we create our world through our thinking. We do this by constantly projecting our views, our programming, our neuroses onto everything and everyone. It's the only way we know how to see, really. The Buddhists call that world that we create by projecting our stuff onto it, they call it Maya, or illusion. It has little to do with what is really going on out there. But it's going on with us, and it's torturing us. The classic Buddhist example, which you might remember, I've said it many times, is a story about the man who has a snake phobia. He's walking through the forest. He sees a stick on the path, and due to his phobia of snakes, what does the man do? Anybody remember? No, well, the man projects onto that stick a snake. He thinks that stick is a snake because of his fear of snakes. So he projects his fear onto the stick. He's terrified now of the stick that he thinks is a snake, and he has a heart attack and dies. The Buddhists say that that is how most of us go through life. We are constantly projecting our fears and anxieties and neuroses and programming onto everything and everyone we encounter, all those sticks out there. And then we react to those projections that really came out of here, and what happens? We suffer, right? Through gradually becoming mindful of what we're doing, projecting our fears onto others, and then changing our thoughts, the Buddhists say that we can get liberated, freed from these illusions and consequent suffering that we are constantly creating. The way to do this is mostly through meditation and mindfulness. Start being aware of what we're doing. Why are we doing it? And then in formal meditation, we start seeing things much more clearly. Unity calls this meditation going into the silence, which Unity co-founders Charles and Myrtle Fillmore did for an hour every evening. Now, all that I have just described is known in Buddhism as the first three of the first four noble truths. The four noble truths are the foundation of Buddhism. The first noble truth is that life is suffering. The second noble truth is that there is a cause of that suffering. The third noble truth is there is an end to that suffering. The first noble truth, life is suffering, means that we aren't happy and peaceful all the time. We just aren't. We suffer. We suffer a lot. Why? Because we're often projecting snakes onto sticks, and then we're reacting to that illusion or Maya in ways that make us suffer. Maybe we see people of other nationalities, races, religions, or political parties as snakes. That is, they're scary, bad, crazy, or stupid. If we're thinking this, we're stressed, scared, or mad. Buddhists call that suffering because they know what is possible for us. Peace with ourselves, in ourselves, and with others. So the first noble truth maintains that life is suffering because we aren't happy and peaceful all the time. The second noble truth is that there's a cause of suffering. The Buddhists say that the cause of suffering is always us, our thinking, our attachments to the way things are, our egos, which are telling us the way things are. When we work with our thinking, we begin to see that that stick on the road is just a stick, not the scary snake that we thought it was. And even if it is a snake, just get out of the way. It's kind of like the frog who sits by the pond for a juicy fly to buzz by. The frog sits patiently on those green leaves and waits for its dinner, right? Finally, a fly whizzes by and the frog misses it. What does the frog do? He just sits there patiently and enjoys the beautiful day and waits for the next one, right? What do we humans do? We get stressed or depressed. We wonder to shrink or have a drink or otherwise sink because we project all kinds of meaning onto that missed fly. Woe is me. Why is this always happening to me? The world's unfair. In other words, we suffer needlessly. Buddhism is about ending that suffering by changing our thinking. The Buddhists say that whatever is making us suffer, making us unhappy, needs to be looked at and dealt with. You certainly don't suppress it. And what we'll find is that it's not the situation or the person out there that needs to be changed. It's us and the way we view the situation. It's just a missed fly, for heaven's sakes, and it's a beautiful day to be out anyway. That doesn't mean you don't wait for the next fly or do something to change what needs to be changed, but we don't need to go into all these mental and emotional upsets and gyrations. Now, this all sounds very simple, of course. It is simple, but as we always say around unity, it's not easy. Often, we have years and decades of programming to overcome. That's why meditation and mindfulness and spending time with others on our spiritual path, known as the Sangha in Buddhism, are so very important. They help us see clearly and realize that there is nothing ultimately on the absolute sense to suffer about. But most of the time, we're going on automatic and we honestly believe that things have to be a certain way, a certain conditioned program way, or else we're unhappy and stressed. We're attached to that, the way things are supposed to be. It often takes gargantuan efforts and a long time for most of us to see how our minds work, and then to let those suffering habits slowly sometimes go. But when we do, we are free. We are healed, mentally and often physically, just as unity maintains. That state of total freedom and healing is known as, in Buddhism, as nirvana or enlightenment. Partial healing means we just get better and better and happier and more capable of being the loving, compassionate beings that we're all capable of being on this planet. That is the goal of the Buddhist path, compassion and happiness. Not so strange, huh? And that is the third noble truth. There is an end to our suffering. It comes about when we change our minds and let go of our attachments to our programming and false beliefs about the way things have to be, or we won't be happy. The fourth noble truth is known as the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is right understanding of truth and wisdom, right intention, having the intention or goal of living a sane way, right action, don't cheat, lie, steal, kill, or use others for your own gain and to their detriment, right effort, in all things live according to your highest principles. Be kind to all living things. Right mindfulness, stay present, be mindful of what you're doing, saying, and thinking. Right concentration, stay focused on your aim and your path. Right livelihood, don't sell arms, drugs, alcohol, or engage in other ways of earning a living that cause harm to any living being. And 8, right speech. Don't lie or speak in ways that are harmful or divisive. Bottom line for the Eightfold Path, be honorable, compassionate, and mindful. I just bought a little Unity magazine here last week entitled Compassion, Living Life with an Open Heart. Some of the articles in here are entitled Kindness, Connection, Harmony, Understanding, Willingness, Self-compassion, Generosity, Listening, Community, Selfishness, Caring, and Openness. These same Unity magazine articles are written about in almost every Buddhist periodical, just like in Unity. It's about being happy, compassionate beings. Now, just as a little background, how did Buddhism start? Unlike Hinduism, which we talked about, sort of morphed out of a number of religions, Buddhism started with one man, Siddhartha Gautama. Siddhartha was born in Nepal in about 500 BC from a noble family. Instead of growing up to be a noble ruler, like his parents wanted him to be, Siddhartha left his Hindu family as a young man and went out on his own to learn to become a spiritual leader so that he could help alleviate all of the suffering that he finally saw. He studied under several renowned spiritual masters, but despite his efforts and a lot of wise gurus or teachers, guru means teachers, he felt like he was not getting the answers he needed. So Siddhartha finally went out on his own. He decided that he would meditate under a Bodhi tree until he became enlightened. He did become enlightened, and he became the Buddha. His first teachings, a few months later, were the Four Noble Truths that we've just been talking about. Life is suffering. There's a cause of that suffering. There's an end to the suffering, and there's a path to follow that will help us live a good life. These first Buddhist teachings are now what is known as the Theravada or Hinayana tradition. Then a few hundred years later, when Buddhism started spreading from Nepal and India to other countries like Japan and Korea and Sri Lanka, a slightly different kind of Buddhism morphed out of the original Theravadan teachings, and these are known as Mahayana Buddhism, often called the Middle Way. Many Mahayana disciples started making a religion out of the Buddhist path, and they started worshiping Buddha as a god, which he would have hated. They also threw in a lot of rituals and dogma into the mix, and voila, you now have a religion, which is actually what Buddha had rejected in his own religion, Hinduism, much like Jesus, who rejected much of his Jewish background. The notable thing, though, about the Mahayana teachings is their emphasis on compassion. Mahayana Buddhists started the idea of the Bodhisattva. How many of you all have heard of the Bodhisattva? Oh, wonderful. Bodhisattvas are beings who have become enlightened, but instead of just enjoying this state of bliss, they vow to go back into the world, taking on all the woes of humanity, and teach the path until all people are enlightened. Thus, Buddhism became known not just as a path where the goal is personal enlightenment, but kind of became known as a religion to some people, and a path whose goal is compassion. That part was wonderful, and helping others get rid of their suffering. By the way, just to clear up a few things, Zen is found in that Mahayana level of Buddhism. Some of you may have read the Zen of motorcycle maintenance, or articles about the Zen of tennis or painting or golf. How many of you all have read one of those books, the Zen of archery? Great, okay. The Zen of golf, which no doubt Buddhist Tiger Woods could have written, the Zen of anything really means that you approach this aspect of your life with an attitude of calm, presence, and attention. The result usually being excellence. In addition to Theravadan and Mahayana Buddhism, there's a third level known as the Vajrayana level. That's called the diamond vehicle, often referred to as Tantric Buddhism. This is a more esoteric, intellectual, and psychological level. It's about 90% psychotherapy at its most advanced level. Now, the Dalai Lama is officially head of all these branches of Buddhism, but whether he is discussing quantum physics, Buddhist psychotherapy, or some Theravadan Buddhist sutra, he always comes back to the same thing: happiness and compassion. And he says they're virtually the same thing, because when we are compassionate toward others, we get happier and happier. Sounds simple, but again, it's not easy. Why can't we love and have compassion for all beings? Because we see them very often as snakes and not the neutral sticks on our path. Let's look at that from the Buddhist perspective. Let's imagine that you have a fellow worker at the office, Tom. Imagine that you're looking at Tom through the lens of these glasses here, okay? These lenses make Tom look like your negative alcoholic uncle who used to constantly scold you when you were 6 years old. You hated your uncle then, and now you hate Tom for resembling your uncle, right? Okay. Then, now you see Tom through different lenses. These lenses make Tom look stern and curmudgeon-y, like your high school history teacher. It was his way or the highway, historically, politically, and pedagogically. So you made a bad grade. Now, okay, you add unreasonable lenses, right? Okay, and closed-minded to your general dislike of colleague Tom, right? Because he looks like your father. Okay, then you look through different lenses. Oh boy, looks like one of these impulse purchases that I've never even used before. Okay. Yep. Okay. These lenses make, maybe that's why. These lenses make Tom look closed-minded and stupid because he resembles your next-door neighbor from Mississippi who had that southern twang that made him sound stupid. Okay, then you see Tom through these lenses. He looks pompous and opinionated. This is the pompous, opinionated filter, right? All right, I've got 8 pairs of glasses here. Fill in the blank, okay, for glasses, the rest of them. These are what I got for the 3D movie. So can you imagine what Tom's going to look like through these lenses? All right, so 8 pairs of lenses later, and you not only hate and disrespect Tom's stupidity and craziness and closed-mindedness, etc., but you refuse to acknowledge any of his ideas at any of the meetings at work because you know what a worthless moron he is. Forget that he has an MBA from Harvard, right? The Tom whom you know through all these different lenses is pure Maya, or illusion. Just like the man's fear of snakes resulted in his heart attack when he saw the stick on his path in the forest. Now, all those lenses, of course, are your programming, your prejudices, your neuroses, right? Your fear, dislike, and discount of Tom is because of your lenses. And this creates stress and suffering and negativity in you. The Buddhists say that through being very mindful of your thoughts, realizing how these lenses are distorting reality, you might start seeing how your ideas have created Tom, and how your idea of Tom is causing you to suffer. You start relieving your suffering by seeing Tom differently, as he really is. At first, it might seem that you suffer more because you own up to your part of who Tom appears to be. This means that you have to quit protecting your fragile ego of thinking that you're right and Tom is wrong. But soon you realize that you are relieved, liberated, freed of all kinds of false impressions and negativity. In fact, Tom's ideas might be the answer to your business's problems, which could not only ease your suffering, but add to your joy and abundance. You can also get to the place where you can truly feel compassion toward Tom. This feeling of compassion helps your emotional and physical health. It frees you from your negative stuff so you can enjoy your life. That's what it's all about, being happy. The Buddhists believe that this ability to see your life clearly can be gained through meditation, which is getting quiet and shutting out the collective psychosis out there that got in here in our monkey minds. So today, we're going to do a special Buddhist meditation, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum means that your life can be transformed. It can be, absolutely. Your impure body, speech, and mind can become pure and clear and free you. The mantra Om Mani Padme Hum is considered to be the condensed version of Buddhism. Specifically, Om aligns you with the vibratory level of the universe, truth. Mani means jewel, the jewel of the teachings that can transform you. Padme means lotus. A lotus has the ability to transmute everything, the mud, dead fish carcasses, and garbage at the bottom of the swamp into a beautiful lotus blossom. That's what we can learn to do with the world. Use it as grist for the mill, whatever it is. And Hum is the spirit of enlightenment or liberation or freedom, nirvana, what Christians call heaven on earth. The most important factor, though, is not the intellectual understanding of the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, but actually using the mantra to activate these pure values and abilities in yourself, much like Charles Fillmore taught us to do with the 12 powers.